Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine this. 2022, right? A huge number. 26 million bags went missing.
Missing as in lost, damaged, or just delayed. Yeah.
That's what, like 7.6 for every 1,000 passengers flying? It kind of makes that little tag they stick on your suitcase feel, well, a bit less comforting, doesn't it?
It really does. It brings home just how often baggage gets mishandled. And with numbers like that, knowing what not to pack in your checked luggage, that's not just, a handy tip.
No, it's essential.
Yeah, it's a smart way to maybe avoid some real travel headaches before they even start.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what we are deep diving into today. We found this great article from Daily Passport.
Mm,
It's basically a guide to the stuff you should really keep out of your check bags. Think of this as like your cheat sheet for a smoother trip.
right. Our mission here is pretty simple. Pull out the key advice from the article, explain why these things are an issue in checked bags, and give you some really clear, actionable takeaways.
Yeah, we want to help you, our listener, just start your vacation right. Less stress, more fun.
Exactly.
So let's kick off with the absolute non-negotiables. Passports and, other really valuable stuff. Seems obvious, maybe.
You'd think so.
But when you hear that statistic, again, lost, damaged, or delayed the idea of your passport, your visa, whatever, taking some random detour in the cargo hold, it just feels way too risky.
It is. And what's interesting is how much even a temporary delay can mess things up.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, most delayed bags eventually find their way back,
Eventually, yeah.
but landing somewhere new without your passport or your
Yeah.
visa, that is a seriously difficult situation to be in. Like day one ruined, potentially.
Total nightmare fuel. And the article, it flags specific things. Passports, visas, obviously, all the supporting paperwork you might need.
Hmm.
Then there's cash, jewelry, anything that's like sentimentally priceless, stuff you just couldn't replace. It really makes you pause and think, okay, what truly matters here?
It does. And it brings up a really good question for you, the listener.
Mm-hmm.
What are the absolute must-haves you'd be totally lost without on that very first day? The article gives examples like, say you're planning a hike the minute you arrive. You probably want those hiking boots in your carry-on not checked.
Or swimwear if you're hitting the beach straight away.
Exactly. Having it with you just makes sense. It's about planning for those immediate first few hours or that first day.
Okay, let's shift gears. Essential medicines. Something we all rely on, many of us anyway. Now, the TSA, that's the Transportation Security Administration in the U.S., they generally allow most medicines in checked bags. The article points this out.
Yeah, things like inhalers, EpiPens, insulin.
Yeah.
Technically, they're usually fine to check.
Usually, yes.
But, and this is a big but, if you connect it back to that risk of delays, well, carrying essential meds with you suddenly seems crucial, especially if you've got tight flight connections.
Oh, definitely. A bag that misses your connection means you might not have that vital medication when you absolutely need it.
Exactly. And the article has some good practical advice here, too, for getting through security smoothly.
Like what?
Make sure any liquid meds are clearly labeled. And it's often a good idea, maybe not always necessary, but smart, to have a doctor's note explaining what they are.
Right, just avoids potential hassle. Better to be prepared.
Always. Okay, now for a weird one. Ready?
Go on.
Dried coconut.
Dried coconut.
Seriously.
Yes, you had that right. Dried coconut, or copra, as it's also known. It's apparently on the no-fly list for checked luggage.
Okay, why? Is it like an agricultural thing? Customs?
Yep. That's what's so interesting. It's because copra has a surprisingly high oil content.
And
then that makes it flammable.
get out. Dried coconut is flammable.
Apparently so. So that innocent-looking bag of, bacon coconut or whatever, it could actually pose a safety risk down there in the hold.
Wow, okay, mine's slightly blown. That is definitely not something I would have ever guessed.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what other, everyday items might be surprisingly hazardous.
It really does. And the article kind of broadens out from there, talking about other things that get scrutinized, like aerosols.
Yeah, hairspray, deodorant. Right. They often contain flammable propellants, so the rule is their nozzles need to have a cap or some protection. It just stops them accidentally spraying in transit.
That's a good point. I've definitely had a can leak before, luckily in my carry-on, but yeah, you wouldn't want that happening unsupervised.
And it's important, the FAA, that's the Federal Aviation Administration, setting the safety rules, their guidance mentioned in the article, says flammable aerosols that aren't medicine or toiletries, they're banned completely. Not in checked, not in carry-on.
Okay, so they take that flammability risk very seriously.
Extremely seriously. And the article lists a whole bunch of other hazardous things the FAA says no to in checked bags. Some are obvious, like paints, solvents,
Yeah, makes sense.
But then there's stuff like kids' chemistry sets, old mercury thermometers,
Mm.
even bear spray is a no-go in checked bags.
Okay.
Pepper spray is sometimes okay, but bear spray, nope.
Huh. So the common thread is potential danger.
Pretty much. Anything that could realistically create a hazard during the flight, flammable, explosive, corrosive, toxic, especially in the cargo hold where it can't be easily dealt with, it's likely restricted. It's all about keeping everyone safe.
Right, safety first. Okay, let's talk batteries, specifically lithium batteries. They power, well, almost everything these days.
Don't they just? Laptops, phones, tablets, those power banks everyone carries?
Hair straighteners, electric toothbrushes.
Exactly. They're everywhere. And the article highlights the issue. While they're super convenient, lithium-ion batteries can overheat. They can even catch fire if they're faulty or damaged or short-circuit.
And this isn't just theoretical, right? The FAA has stats on this.
Yeah, quite sobering ones.
Mm.
476 incidents involving smoke, fire, or extreme heat from these batteries on flights, just between March 2006 and March 2024.
Wow. Okay, that really puts the risk into perspective.
It absolutely does, and it
Yeah.
explains the main regulation. Spare lithium batteries, the ones not actually in a device, they have to be in your carry-on, in the cabin with you.
And the logic there is,
It's simple, really. If something does go wrong, if a battery starts overheating or smoking, it's going to be noticed much, much faster in the cabin where people are,
right, where the crew can react immediately. Makes total sense.
compared to being buried in a suitcase in the hold.
Yeah, okay, so that leads naturally to electronics themselves. The rules around checking phones, laptops, etc., they're mostly tied to those batteries inside them.
That's the primary driver, yes.
Right.
The fire risk. Now, technically, the article mentions you can put electronics in your checked bag, but they have to be completely switched off.
Keyword. Off. Not just sleep mode or standby.
Exactly. Off. Off. However,
Here comes the but. The practical reality, right?
precisely. Even if it's allowed, I mean, who really wants to risk their expensive laptop or their camera getting lost? Or damaged by rough handling? Or even just delayed for a few days?
Yeah, not me. The thought of arriving somewhere without my laptop, no thanks.
So the article rightly points out, for valuable items like these, just the desire to keep them safe and secure usually means you carry them on, regardless of the technical rule.
Good point. And we should definitely mention the electronics that are never allowed, checked, or carry on.
Ah, yes, e-cigarettes and vaping devices. Those have to stay with you, on your person, or in your carry-on. Never in checked luggage. Big no-no.
Okay, good reminder. Finally, let's quickly touch on some personal care items. You know, we all like our routines, even when traveling. Bringing your own hair straighteners or curling tongs feels pretty standard.
It does. And the corded ones.
Yeah,
Generally fine in checked luggage. No major issues there.
it's the cordless ones that get tricky.
That's where the complications can come in, yeah. As the article explains, some cordless stylers use flammable gas, like butane.
Ah, like those little travel curling irons?
Exactly. Now, you can take one gas cartridge for those into the cabin, usually, but it needs a safety cover, and you can't bring refills.
Yeah.
And definitely not allowed in the hold.
Okay. And what about other cordless things, like rechargeable ones?
Well, if they're powered by lithium batteries.
Ah, then we're back to the same battery rules again.
You got it. Same restrictions apply. Best bet for a cordless lithium-powered styler. Keep it in your carry-on.
Okay, right. Let's try and boil this down then. The key takeaways for you listening. Number 1, valuables, essential documents, passports, irreplaceable items, essential medicines, keep them with you. Carry on only.
Absolutely. And then number 2, be aware of flammables and hazardous materials. That includes surprising things like dried coconut, but also aerosols, paints, certain sprays, stuff like that. FAA rules are strict for safety.
Got it. Number 3, lithium batteries. Spares must be in the cabin. Devices with them are technically okay if switched off, but probably safer with you.
Which leads to number 4, expensive or sensitive electronics. Just safer in your carry-on, realistically. And remember, no e-cigs or vapes in check bags.
And finally, number 5, certain personal care items. Corded is usually okay. Cordless using butane gas or lithium batteries. Check the specific rules, but generally carry on is the way to go.
Exactly. If you keep those categories in mind when you're packing, you can seriously cut down on potential stress.
Yeah, you reduce the worry about your checked bag and minimize the fallout if it does get delayed or damaged. It's just about packing smarter.
Prioritizing what needs to stay with you for safety, security, or just immediate need.
So as you're packing for that next trip, deciding what goes where, here's something to think about, maybe a little broader. We rely so much on lithium-ion batteries now, right, in daily life when we travel. How do you think the rules around flying with them might need to change in the future, to keep balancing safety with convenience as technology evolves?
That's a really interesting question to ponder. Definitely food for thought.